What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. My name is Jonas M. And with me, as always, is Mr. Raman Singh in the top left. But today we have two very, very special guests, two people from our recent group who have successfully passed the exam, Mr. Bryan and Miss Lahari. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. How are we today?
Good. Thanks for having us, Joe.
Of course.
Good. Great.
So, why don't we get started by just getting a little background on you guys? Tell us a little bit about yourselves and your experience with how you came to wanting to take the CFP or how the CFP came into your life. So, Lahari, why don't we start with you and just kind of give us a little background on who you are and a little bit about CFP for you.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2022 with two degrees in MIS and finance and went more the MIS route. And at my college, financial planning was in a completely different school from the business school. So I didn't even really register that that was an option. It was very investment banking focused or corporate finance focused. And I was like, well, I don't want to do either of those, so I'm just gonna pursue something else. And throughout my first year and a half of working, I honestly just in my free time started listening to more personal finance podcasts and was really interested in that content and started to think about, is there anything that I can do to kind of level up in this area, maybe make a switch? And I remembered someone in college briefly coming into one of my classes and talking to us about CFP. And I was like, what does that mean again? Like, what is that? And so I went on the website very simply and was like, what are the requirements? Okay, college degree, have one down. And then it said coursework, did that. And then the next step was obviously the test. So, yeah. And then that's where your course came in, and really happy that it worked out.
Yeah, awesome. What about you, Brian?
Yeah. So finance is I've been around it for a long time. I had some friends long ago, maybe 25 years ago, who were futures traders. So while I was in my past career in television and media and PR, I always kind of was doing finance in the background. And my grandfather got me into it many, many, many years ago, just basic stuff, right? Just learning about stocks and stuff. So I always kind of had it back there. So then kind of after some friends and then um, after what 2018 or so, I just made the decision I wanted to make a career change. I wanted to do something different. And so I got into finance. I had a friend who went to a firm who kind of taught her and got it going. When they knew that I was kind of going to make a change, I just went with it and said, if I'm not going to do it, I better do it now. So I did it. It was a great experience. Got into business. So I've been in the business now for almost 10 years. Um, been at a couple big firms, and then, geez, 2.5, 3 years ago now, I started my own firm with LPL Financial. So through that whole journey, I wanted to get the experience, learn as much as I could through all these different firms, all these different colleagues. But the CFP was always kind of my target. I always knew that that was going to be something I needed, especially dealing with certain type of clients, certain type of business people, things like that. So it was always something I had on my agenda. And so again, got to the point where after what 8 years or so, I said, I better just get this done. And so yeah, so then I'm went for another firm and got some good education, but I'm extremely glad I found you and got through it this last time as well as Lahari.
Outstanding.
Thank-
Outstanding.
Well, I guess I'll jump right in here, guys. So would love to talk a little bit more about the technicalities of like studying and whatnot. So I'd say, tell us a little bit about the study strategies or like your routine that you would say like work best for you during this whole prep course, the journey. And then also like how did you make sure you stayed consistent with everything else going on in your life?
Go ahead, Lahari.
Yeah, we'll start
Um,
with the Hari first.
all right. So I don't know if this is necessarily the greatest advice, but my routine wasn't necessarily around specific times of the day or what's gonna happen per scheduled hours of the day. It was more like each day, this amount of stuff is going to get done. You're going to do your flashcards, you're going to do your assignments from Joe, you're going to maybe remediate this quiz. And if there's a day where I'm just like really not feeling it, like in the morning or something, then it's going to wait until later in the day. But one way or another, it's going to get done. A lot of the test experience for me was filtering through a lot of the commonly touted advice and what worked for other people and thinking really critically, like, okay, is this going to work for me? Like, I realized I am a huge night owl, and a lot of my best studying was done, like, okay, after the workday is done, after dinner, after the gym, and like, there's nothing really else to think about or be distracting. And like, I focused really well at that time. Also, I used a lot of self-bribery for motivation. So, like, get all your stuff done. You're like then you can be on a train to Connecticut to like see your friends this one weekend, but you're gonna do flashcards on the train and then you can like have fun with your friends and not feel guilty about it. Like I would look forward to like going and walking on the treadmill and like finding new music and by doing flashcards at the same time and like associating finding new music with doing flashcards. Just like little tie-ins to make the studying process more fun and not focusing on like the grind of it, but focus on like, oh my God, I really like what I'm learning. I really like having this routine. Like I'm not having to make as many decisions because I always know I'm going to be doing. You're either working, studying, or like doing a life function of like cooking, eating, sleeping, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. And what about you, Brian? What would you say how your routine was and your strategies and obviously staying consistent with especially like building your practice up and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I think I'm not the opposite, but I have to be super structured. So with my own firm and stuff. So I think what my thing is I'm an early riser. I have been, I think my mom's told me since I was born. I've been like waking up at 4 or 5 a.m. So
Oof,
yeah,
oof.
so for me, yeah, I mean, so yeah, great line of work, right? So um yeah, so for me it was to do get up, get some coffee in me, just get some blood going, and then really then hit flashcards for about an hour. Um, get my brain going, kind of just see what's going on with the market per day, see what my day looks like with clients and things like that, see if there's any emergencies or if there's any things I need to do. Then it was yeah, kind of like Lahari was saying, it was not worrying about everything in a whole, but really focusing on small things. So, what did I need to get done for that week? And I think through your program, it was really good because it was structured in a way where we could focus on a certain thing per week or per day. And I think my wins, like Lahari was saying, was as long as I learned, if I thought I learned one thing a day, grasp one concept that I felt better with than the day before, then I felt like I won that day. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what it was. Like if I figured something out with the calculator or figured out a definition that was better, just if I had one little win a day, I felt like I accomplished something. Um, and then, yeah, so then I would just kind of go through, get my day done, and then usually tackle a subject pretty hardcore for about probably 4 hours or so at night. But luckily, again, having my own practice, I could kind of put it throughout the day as well. So that really helped as well. Um, yeah, and then just kind of focusing on just the tools, a calc book that I use for calculations. And then for me, I just feel better if I'm structured, but that's just kind of me.
Yeah, likewise. I found when I studied for CFP, CFA, the less amount of decisions that I had to make as to when I was studying or how I was, it was like get your work done and then you have the rest of the night to study. Because if I didn't, and it was like sometimes I'm studying in the morning, and so I was all over the place. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this. This obviously, class is intense. Robin and I certainly weren't easy on you guys. You guys had obviously first couple of weeks, those four assignments were always challenging, always time consuming.
Yeah.
How did you guys manage to stick to the process and stay consistent? Because there's a lot of the not talked about stuff, right? There's the content, and then there's the stuff that goes on in between your ears, which is I'm tired. And I think just being fatigued in and of itself is a very difficult hurdle for a lot of us to get over because you don't realize how taxing studying really is until you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it. How did you guys stick to that intense process while running your own firm, while being, young in your career, living in New York, wanting, dealing with the temptations of wanting to be in
Yeah.
your 20s and go out. How did
Yeah.
you guys kind of manage the other part of it, the emotional part, the fatigue, all that kinds of stuff? Lahari, let's start with you as well.
Yeah, for one, it definitely helps that a lot of my peers are in a similar life stage. So, like, my boyfriend is getting an MBA. One of my best friends is studying for second level CFA. A bunch of my friends are like applying to medical school. So, it helps to like put that in perspective. Like, we're all kind of in the same phase of life of trying to level up in our career and like pursue bigger opportunities. So when I'm down in the dumps, it's like I'm looking around and I'm like, well, I don't see anyone else complaining, or we're like complaining together. And again, the looking things to look forward to piece, like it really helped to on days that like I'm just like complaining, but I still have some juice left to like push through. And then similarly, like I think towards the second half of class, there were times when I realized like, hey, I am kind of close to burning out, so I need to like pull back a little bit and focus on quality over quantity and also just rest, or I'm not going to retain anything and I'm not going to be ready to go for class and the rest of the assignments and, you know, pulling off passing the exam.
Yep. What about you, Bry?
Yeah, I think leaning back on past experiences for me, I think, I've run and built multiple businesses in my life. I've worked in the media and live television and things. There is no escape. You either we had a saying, we knew the people who could deal with stress and the people who couldn't. And luckily I've had those experiences in my life in a lot of different ways where you just deal with it. And I just kind of leaned on that and said, it's like Lahari, I have a lot of friends who own businesses. They work, man, they work like 100 hours a week. They just do everything. And believe me, I would get no sympathy from any of my friends, these business owners, because
Uh,
I'm personally not married. I don't have kids. They are married. They have three, four kids. They run their businesses. They own businesses. They would look at me and go, "What are you crying about?" Like, so, so I just think leaning back on experiences for me and just saying, you know what, I want to get this done. This is just another thing I want to get done. This is just another achievement I want to get done. Um, but I agree with Lahari too. I think when you get those tough times, I think one thing that helped me this time is you got to take that break and you got to learn from that and just say, you know what, if I'm burnt today, I got to step back because if anything, I'm going to hurt
yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
what comes with experience too is you learn you're that's just it's going to hurt you, not help you.
Yeah. It also helped for me to mix up my materials. So, like on days where I just didn't have it in me to like read really in depth or answer a bunch of questions, like I would go look up CFP podcasts and like go on a walk and just like, like kind of more passively take in some content. So I was still engaging, but like a little bit more low stakes, things like that.
Can I ask you guys what surprised you about the process? Like, was there something that surprised you or something that didn't surprise you? I always know that when I took CFA, I remember going in and going, I know this is going to be hard. And then I got into it and I'm like, oh my God, I did not realize it was going to be this hard. But I was also kind of surprised that I could push as hard as I could. I didn't necessarily, I knew I had that in me. Did you guys feel like there was something surprising about the process? Like, I knew it was going to be tough. I didn't realize it was going to be this detailed. I didn't realize it was going to be something to that extent, or even something personally about yourself that you guys felt surprised by.
I
For
think
me,
maybe,
yeah,
oh,
go ahead,
you can go
Laurie.
first, Brian.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a lot. It's a lot of material.
Yeah.
I think, we all go through it, right? We all have continuing ed. We've been through the seven, we've been through college, we've been through all this stuff. We being in the business a long time, you have to learn all these different products over the years and things. But it's a lot. Like it's a lot to learn for one single thing, right? Like in business, it's like we can always lean on a product partner, we can lean on an expert, but it's a lot we have to know for a 6, 7 hour test. So I think that's what it is. And yeah. So it's just you come to the realization that it's a lot in a lot of different subject that matters as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I agree with that. How about you, Laurie?
I think a lot of it for me was the non-linearity of the process. Like I remember, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks into your program, I had a point where I was like, God, like how am I gonna learn all this stuff? Like every time I had a question, if I went to the IRS website, I'd be like, well, now there's just so much information on this one topic. Obviously, I'm not gonna learn all of that for every single one. Or like finding conflicting sources from different like things on Google if I was trying to answer a question. And I was just getting really frustrated. And then honestly, I listened to one of your podcast episodes titled like studying is supposed to make you feel stupid. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I needed for this point in time. And it just helped me like get through that hump and be like, if I feel stupid right now, like that means I'm doing everything right. Because the stupid isn't coming from a, oh, like I don't even know what I don't know. It's coming from a God, I know that there's so much that I need to learn, but I know that I need to learn these topics and I will. So.
And you
And
did.
I was gonna say, I will say, like, from studying perspective, I think it truly like pushes us to that limit where we don't realize, like, damn, I am able to accomplish this, and this is a huge piece that we're trying to take down, right? So
Mhm.
it tells you like who you are as a person. Like if you
Mhm.
pass the CFP exam, you kind of look back at it like, holy crap, like, I that was a big obstacle in my life and I accomplished it. It unlocks something in your mind. Like, would you agree with that, guys?
For sure.
Yeah, and like Lahari was saying, it's like I think you're going through it, and you guys have talked about this on podcasts and during classes. 90% of the time, you feel so dumb. Like you're like, how did I not know that? Or I read that, I've read this 12 times, and it's like, how do I not have this yet? But it's so much, but you don't realize how you are ingesting it until you get later in the process, and that's part of the process. Is there's so much information, but you just got to keep doing it, and you just got to keep going and going and going, and then just realize you are ingesting it, and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just half the time you're like, how do I not know this yet? It's like,
Yeah.
and you've been in the business forever, and you've done all this stuff, and you've taken all these tests, and yeah, but you are ingesting it, and you do know it. It's just so much at a given time.
So
That's me in the gym doing cardio. You see my face. I'm like, and
like,
then
I
you're
know
like,
I need to do this. I know I need to do this.
and then you're like, I'm not doing anything. And then you test, and you're like, oh, I kind of improved. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we talked about a lot about the challenges of the process, and how we said like repetition is the key, right? Being persistent, being consistent. I love what Lahari said about self-bribery, Joe. I feel like that's a
That's
great
it.
point right there. I think you just
Yeah.
gotta bribe yourself. Like if you do
Hmm.
this, then
Yeah.
you could do
Oh
this
yeah.
later. But let's dive into something a little bit more specific about the topics. And I remember we're not going to talk a lot about details on the test, but we would love to hear from you guys. What would you say was some of the most challenging topics on the CFP material for you that you said like, I hate this, I don't like studying this, and then most importantly, how did you tackle them and overcome that fear of those topics? And Lahari, will go back to you again.
For me, retirement was the topic that I had the most like difficulties with, which also it's the if on the CFP like percentages that it gives you, like it's the highest thing tested. So I was like, I really have to improve this area. And I think like what really turned it around was I bless my mom, like only person who would sit through me explaining the entire like Danko review retirement section to her. But like that's what I did. I like talked her through and I was like, these are the Social Security rules and these are all the different types of plans and what they mean. I spared her like the ADP, ACP, and all those kinds of details, but
You might as well have
that
done it at that point. She
well, yeah,
sat through the hell.
that was really helpful. Like I'd explain things to her. I would explain things to my boyfriend. Like, really, for anything that was really complicated, like retirement was the section that I struggled with the most. But like for each of the other sections, there would be like a topic or two that really frustrated me, like bond convexity, for example. And for me, the thing that helped the most was novelty. Like, I used your resources, I used the Danko stuff that I had from previous exam attempt, the IRS website, a lot of things I would try to find other explanations for or simplify or ask pointed questions with ChatGPT. Use it sparingly because, it doesn't have everything correct. But for me, it was really helpful to get clear answers that I couldn't find anywhere else. And then also, you have to like test your knowledge of, are you able to distinguish if what it's saying is like just false information? But yeah, podcast, writing things out. I bought an iPad because I thought that the flashcards would be more fun to look at on a big screen. And like I used it, I would like draw on it and make diagrams, Venn diagrams and stuff with my Apple Pencil. Just like as much novelty as possible, seeing the information in as many different ways as possible was really helpful for me.
So
But also like
it sounds like you didn't just attack 10,000 questions.
no. And if anything, like towards the second half of class, like I didn't do the majority of the quizzes at the end. I think the like CFP previously released question quizzes, because at a certain point I was like, this isn't, it's just exhausting me to have to do all these questions. And I feel like I'm not diving in. So I took more of your approach that you had mentioned in class of like, make sure you know every single thing on like the number of questions that you do and like really dive in and let that quality override just like hammering through a bunch of questions if it's not gonna be like productive.
And Brian, what about you? Let's hear what you have to say.
I think those are great points. I did some similar things. So for me, it was kind of tax and estate. And it's funny because I know I've mentioned this to Joe before. It's as an advisor, one of the first things they teach you is you're not a tax expert, so don't answer tax questions. So it kind of forces you as an advisor to be out of the tax mind because that's just what you do. And so I have some CPA friends and I have people who are very talented at what they do. But yeah, so for me, it was going back to the basics in tax and just going through printing off all the forms. And I think using the forms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding how the forms flow,
Yeah.
Schedule A, Schedule B, how do things flow? What are they? Whereas before I had general knowledge and how they flow in AGI and figuring out taxable and all that. And then, going through questions, it's, a lot of it came back to tax, right? It could be an estate question that talks about tax. So it's getting complex and learning. So like Lahari was talking about, it was trying to teach the concept. And I would do the same thing with Grok and ChatGPT was I'd go in and I'd hammer it with the question saying, here's this concept, ask me a CFP question based on this, and then give me another one, give me another one, give me another one, give me another one until I kind of got that concept down. Because yeah, Joe, your stuff is awesome, and other people I went through to study as well. But sometimes it's hard to kind of go, okay, well, I'm struggling with this right now. Instead of trying to go find it somewhere, it was sometimes easier to go to those things and go, no, just give me some questions on this now. And like Lahari, I did the same thing. I didn't do a ton of questions the week or so before the test.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was you got to know the material and you got to start there. And I think too many people, and I have some friends as well that went through it, they just hammered questions. And it wasn't very successful because you weren't really learning the material. You were getting really good at taking questions, but you may not have been getting the learning down. And so for me, it was doing the same thing. I was trying to teach the material, different things for me, tax, estate, retirement. Um, and then yeah, doing different things. And I think the big thing too is you got to know yourself as a learner. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm a
Hmm.
big video learner, and I'm not a big book learner. I've always struggled through everything. I've learned through just reading books. I've got to come up with different concepts. So I think watching videos, doing the ChatGPT thing, the flashcards with Quizlet was phenomenal for me this last time. Being able to do it that way, but you have to learn. You have to know your learning thing. The Pomodoro effect as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Me studying for a half an hour, taking a 5-minute break, studying hardcore for another half an hour, taking a little break. You have to know you. You can't have your friend or you, or just like we teach in finance, right? My biggest belief is we all have a different financial DNA, which means you are not your neighbor, you are not your coworker, you are not your best friend when it comes to finances. We are not our best friends, or I am not Lahari when it comes to studying.
Right.
What
Yeah.
works for her may not work for me, and for me to try to do the same thing, I think was is just crazy. So you have to know yourself going into this.
So
Yeah.
what do you guys think is the thing that you guys discovered this time around that pushed you over the edge? Both of you guys, and if you've watched this podcast, you know how big of a proponent I am of flashcards because I think in terms of building your fundamentals, they're unmatched. Now, obviously, there's a limit to what flashcards can do, right? But we know that just that reiteration of fundamentals. You guys mentioned a lot of different stuff. Was there one of those things that going back now and thinking, maybe if I had done this earlier, it would have been more effective? Like, and I think what you just said, Brian, is like you did something fantastic, which is you started to get yourself to know what you do well and adapt all of the resources to your learning style, which is the
Yeah.
whole point of the resources is you can adapt them in a way that works really well for you. But what was there a resource? Was there a thing that you guys did? Was there something that maybe you had to stop doing or kind of cut a bad habit or unlearn a bad habit that you guys think pushed you over the edge? Because this is pretty incredible what you guys are saying. Like very insightful.
I think in the first half of class, like everything used to take me forever. Like all of the assignments, flashcards would take me like an hour to like 2 hours, some for some of the longer decks, but like spaced out because I would be going through and making sure that I could recite what was on the card or like remember every single point without like flipping at it or flipping back and forth. And if I would get one tiny little part of the flashcard wrong, I would star it and then redo all the ones I started at the end. And it took a long time. And it took a long time to do your assignments, especially the open-ended ones, and like make sure that to my ability, I left no stone unturned on like a possible answer. Like sometimes I still got stuff wrong, but that exercise of going really in depth, even if it was more annoying initially, made it so that when I felt like I was burning out in the last half of class, I could pull back a little bit and be take comfort in knowing that I was going to be fine. Because I had already done a lot of like the harder stuff, and now I was like refining my skills and adding on little details that I still needed to remember or like had forgotten or confused or something.
Yeah, I think for me, Joe, was being held accountable. I think with your course, you are held accountable. I
Yeah.
think with other courses, you are not held accountable.
Mm.
It is go read X, go take X amount of questions. Nobody is there to check to see what you're doing. You can do it, you cannot do it, but there's for me, it's sometimes you don't really have a concept of where you are. With you and ramen, you know where you are
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because you will tell us.
Yeah.
But I think since COVID, for a lot of people, and I know some people struggle with this in their own careers, we're all kind of held with a limited power of accountability at this point. Some of us
Mhm.
don't even go to the office anymore. Some of us only go in for a certain amount of hours. Some of us only see our bosses or non-boss or corporate people only a little bit of time. And so I think a lot of us are kind of, we've escaped that accountability um, in a lot of ways. And I think having that accountability really helped me because
Yeah.
I think it's weird because I have my own firm and I do my own stuff, right? But I do like being held accountable by others um, and by my friends. And so I think that helped me with you guys with being held accountable in class and by other classmates, right? Like you see Lahari and you see others in class like killing it in sections. And it's like, wow, I need to get better at that. And so I think that really helps. And I'm a very competitive person. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, wow, okay, they got this. Where am I falling short? I gotta get on this. So I think that really helped me. And yeah, just like Lahari too, I think the Quizlet thing was going through, starring, going back through again, and just yeah, just holding yourself accountable. And I think if you're, I don't know, it's just me, but if you're not that type of first person for this test, it is going to be very hard for you.
It's funny you guys mentioned that a lot of the students that we work with, that we meet, whether it's through the whole classroom setting or even like the individual tutoring that we do, the biggest thing, two biggest things students tell us, and Joe could probably, Joe may have a different opinion, but I doubt it. But two biggest things students tell us is number one, I need accountability, and number two, I need structure. And
Yeah.
the moment you start having those two things with I don't even care if it's the CFP exam, it could be the CFA, it could be the EA, it could be anything. But the moment you start having the structure of studying and the accountability and self-bribing, right? And then not doing, the just the aggressiveness of just, you know, the instant gratification type of work, right? Which is like take a quiz, see a result, take a quiz, see a result. If you could just kind of keep that within the limits, I feel like you can accomplish passing any exam. Like, I mean, what do you think about that, Joe?
I mean, I always have said that we've seen more talent walk in and out of our classes who have failed than we've seen stayed around because I think the hardest thing, and I think any of us who are in financial planning work, right? You get clients who walk into your office and tell you how things are, and you're going, I'm going to sell here and I'm going to buy here. And you're like, oh, come on, man. Like, and we all know that discipline is far more important than talent. We see it in sports, we see it. And I've had a lot of students, and my student that I always kind of hold up as my beacon is I've had somebody who didn't go to college past the CFA more so out of discipline. He was just a bull. He just did all the work that was necessary and the repetition worked. And for me, that is the deciding line is how disciplined are you going to be during the process? Because everybody's always going to find something that works that's a little bit different. There's always the core things. We all got to do things that help us with our recall. We all got to do things that help us with our application and our understanding. And that's what's common to all of us. But the thing that is for all of us, and I think we lose it as adults, it's like,
Hmm.
right, we don't have our parents checking in. Are you doing homework? If you walk out of that corporate setting, one of the biggest pushes for me was in starting to work with ramen is now knowing that I have to meet with ramen is like, oh, it has to be done on Tuesday. I can't have it done on Thursday because we're meeting on Tuesday. So it's got
Yeah.
to be done. And vice versa with us is that is an accountability for us as well to make sure that we're getting the work that we need to get done in a timely fashion because time is the killer, right? Leaving just a little bit of time. You guys know this, right? You walk away from it on Monday, you come back on Thursday, you're like, I don't remember what this. So I couldn't agree more. I think Brian, what you said is that accountability is something that is becoming more and more sparse with technology. It's where accountability is the victim of technology, and that's really because you go to an office every day. It's not like I took a half hour to rearrange my closet. Like nobody knows you're doing that at home, but you can't do that in an office with all eyes on you all the time. And I think that's definitely the
So I have another question for you both. So this goes out for the students who are taking the CFP exam, whether it's for the first time or the second time or the third time or the fourth time. What type of advice you would offer to these students right now who are looking to either start the CFP journey from scratch or they just got defeated by the CFP exam, in March and they are getting ready to take the July exam or the November exam. What advice would you pass on to these students? Lahari?
Um, I would say, like, I know that Joe, I think you've talked about this on your show before, but the biggest thing is like you got to have a really strong why to, I think, maintain any long-term goal, CFP being one of them. the first time I took the exam, it was in November of 2024 and didn't pass that time. And I did like a strong retrospective on like what went wrong, what areas of my life in general, like am I not content with right now, and like what needs to change. And the CFP exam was a little bit of a catalyst to number one, like improve a lot of my relationships and things that like were just kind of tumultuous in life. Like I had just moved and was experiencing a little bit of the winter blues probably. And this exam and studying for it gave me a push to like add a little bit more structure, add a little bit more of a sense of routine, even though I ironically at the beginning of this said that I didn't really do that. Like I did in my own way. So my biggest piece of advice would be to really know yourself, tailor everything to your personality, how you learn, how you work. Get yourself a really big team. Like I was really isolated the first time I took the exam, and I think adding this tutoring group, I found a mentor on the CFP board website. I leaned on my like boyfriend and my friends and my family a lot more. And when I had moments of doubt, I would like phone for help. I remember the week of the exam being like, Joe, I don't know if everything I did was enough. Like, can you give me some reassurance? And it was really helpful. Like I have never had to exhibit such toxic positivity levels of belief in myself. Like I re-listened to the Beyonce like Homecoming soundtrack and made myself a playlist, and that would be like what I played on my way to the exam, like during the lunch break, during studying, or like just going on walks. I would before I go to bed like visualize the entire day of like what I'm gonna wake up and do and eat, and like I'm gonna look over my papers on the way to the exam because it's gonna make me feel better. Even though some people say, don't look at anything the day of the exam. No, I didn't do that. I looked through all my stuff, I reread my notes, and just like a little bit, whatever is gonna get the job done for you. And during the exam, like at the beginning, I would write out like my name and the letters. I'm so excited to tell Joe and my mentor and my friends and all these people who believed in me that I passed and how much their support meant to me. I would write out like I believe in myself, like really cheesy, corny stuff that you would look at someone else doing and go, "Oh my God, that's crazy." But you kind of have to do it. Like you have to get yourself in the mindset and just not even entertain any thoughts of not passing because you're just going to do all the work that you can do and put your best foot forward. And if it doesn't work, then you can try again, but you have to give it everything that you can in the time that you have.
100%. What about you, Brian? What would you have to say?
Yeah, a lot of the same. I would say you have to set yourself up for success. I'm a little different. I mean, I pretty much put everything else in my life on hold. It's just kind of how I am. I either go in 110% or I just don't do something. Just how I've always been. And so part of that is kind of going in and setting yourself up by your support system. You've got to have the back of your significant others or your business partners or your colleagues or I work with a group here in town that I could lean on for support through the Platinum Wealth Group. Some really good friends. She has an amazing firm here in town. We share some clients, and she has amazing support people. And so they kind of were like, "Hey, look, if you need us to help you today, we can help you." So really knowing going in and setting yourself up with that support, knowing who you can lean on, like Lahari was saying, and his different colleagues or spouse or whoever it is. I do a daily call with this group, and so it's sharing insights or the big thing, like we said before, about teaching, right? What's going on today in the market that pertains to the CFP. So there was numerous days
Mhm.
I'd go on and say, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, here's what I'm doing with CFP, and here's how it relates, and kind
Mhm.
of teach the material. And um, having study partners. I know through your course, Joe, is I teamed up with somebody, and just having those extra daily, couple days a week calls with a study partner was key. Bouncing ideas, they're better at some things that I'm better at, and then teaching each other the different things. How did you get to that? And they're like, how did you get to that? And so you're again, you're kind of you're kind
Yeah.
of get you're kind of getting to the different
Yeah.
ways of doing it. And I think I don't know about Lahari, but you just have there's so much. There's not only there's so much on the test, but then there's so much material. Like
Yeah.
for a year, my dining room table was filled with material, and so it's books and tablets and flashcards, and then you have everything online that you're constantly saving PDFs and you're constantly saving this or that, and so you've got these massive folders. And so yeah, so you just come to a point where you just have all this material, and so it's you just have to learn how to condense and kind of lean on everybody else you have in your life to kind of stick to your schedule and just know that it's going to be over too, right? Is we get sucked into every day like, man, I got to get all this done today, and just keep the goal in mind. Keep that date in mind, and like Lahari was saying, is look at those little things every day and find the joy in it,
Yeah.
because you've got to find the joy in it every day. Like I said before, is I had to at least I came out of every day thinking I learned something. That was my joy for the day. Um, yeah, so you just take those little things.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna ask you guys one more question.
Yeah.
Was there a point that you guys felt like I got this? Like I know I'm gonna pass? Or did you guys walk in going, this could go either way? I'll tell you what me and Ramen thought.
So I'll go first on
Yeah.
this one. So honestly, I I've taken so many tests, I've taken so many different things in my life. No, I basically went in like 50-50. If it happens, it happens. I think I have the material down. I think I have a better understanding of the concepts. Um, I've got a pretty good understanding of how the test works, but I don't know. I know that's just me. And again, I think Lahari was saying, she's like, you got to go in, you got to know you passed.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was like, I don't know. You hope for the best. You got to do your best. Um, but I also believe my biggest saying is you can only control what you can control.
Yeah.
You have zero control of that test. And I think in this business, and there's so many people, we all know these people, doesn't matter, girl, guy, whoever they are, they're type alphas. They think they know everything. They run the room. They're taught that early on in their careers. You got to be these alphas. You got to be these leaders. You got to take control. And then you sit for these tests and boom, you get crushed. And so you don't know. So I'm a realist, and I'm like, no, it's out of my control. All I can control is what I could control
Yeah.
this last year, this last 8-10 weeks with Joe and Ramen. But no, I'll be honest. I'm like, no, it's when I walk in, it's either gonna happen or it won't. But that's kind of how I looked at it.
How about when you hit the submit button?
Well, when I hit the submit button again, I was like 50-50. I was like the first, so I'll be honest. So the first half was tough. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Second half started off easy, and again, I have to know myself, right? I felt like I was ahead of the test. I knew myself. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm like 20-30 minutes ahead, and I'm lucky here in the Reno, Nevada test center where there's only 12 people taking it.
Hmm.
Easy to get in and out to go to the bathroom and come back. And I said, for me, I need this mental break right now. So I took the break and I said, I'm going to go to the bathroom, clear my head, come back, do the rest of the test. Hit the submit, but I was still like, I feel good, but I don't know. And honestly, when it came up and said pass, I'm like, no way. Like, I'm like, does it really say that?
Yeah.
And so no, it's weird because I look back at the seven, and the seven I had this mass adrenaline rush go down, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. This time it was just kind of like, no way. And I'm like, it was just kind of this weird, like out of body. Did that really just happen?
It's a unique feeling because like the whole process with the seven is an adrenaline rush. It's like,
Yeah.
here's your books, see you in a month, but this one is like you actually got to do some real
Yeah.
learning. Like,
Yeah.
Well, the seven for me too was with the firm I was at was basically you pass, you keep your job, you fail, you don't have a job.
me too.
And so, yeah, so it was like you fail and go back to what you were doing. So that's why that was such an adjust. Oof. Whereas this was a huge accomplishment, but it was kind of like an unreal.
Yeah.
It still is because we still, at least I don't officially write. We don't have the letters yet. We
Yeah.
won't for maybe a week or two. So I don't know. So it still feels kind
Surreal.
of unreal.
Yeah. What about you, Laurie?
Um, I think after the first exam that we took, like the CFP mock, I was like, okay, I feel good about this. I feel like I have a high probability of passing if I just keep up the momentum, but I never let myself get too cocky or anything. Stay
Yeah.
humble. You never know what the test will
Yeah,
throw at you.
exactly.
And it kind of like dipped with the second test and then back up high again with the third. And then, I had my little, the test is this week and called you, felt better. Um, but I will say I was very surprised by how like much more anxiety inducing that knowledge of, oh my God, this is the actual test was for me. Like usually I was able to get through all the mock exams like fairly like a little bit quickly, like quicker by a few minutes than the like paced time and like felt good about it. And I was just like way more stressed about it on the actual exam. Like some of the questions definitely were more challenging, but then on that added, I'm like, oh, it's the real thing. So that's when the mental strategies really helped. When I hit the submit button, I was like, okay, I think it went well. Maybe off by a few points if I failed, but hopefully I passed. And then it said pass, and I literally went like, oh my God. And then I think I like blinked a few times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Looked to my right and left to be like, are you guys seeing this? Even though nobody could because we had the little like cubicle things on. And I was just like in shock. And then I think I literally turned myself, went to the bathroom, and like burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, like I'm so proud of myself. I'm so happy I don't have to go home and do flashcards. Like, this is great.
It is a surreal moment. Ramen, do you remember yours?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I think the headspace going into the exam is a big thing in my opinion. So I remember the first time I took the test, I was kind of cocky and I was like, yeah, I got this. I passed the 7 in 3 weeks. I passed the 66 in 3 weeks. Like I know it. I'm in the industry. I got out of the car. It was in Houston, Texas. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna fail this test. And I literally got out of the car thing, I'm gonna fail this test. And next thing you know, I hit the submit button, it was failed. But the second time, because I'm to Bryan and Lahari's point, I'm a very competitive person. At least I used to be when I was, 10 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I know I need to crack the code. And I cracked the code on how to study and kind of like, self-bribery. And I mean, I would literally have printouts to Bryan's point, like all over the table. I would have printouts next to my bed. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever I would wake up in the morning, I would read before I even go brush my teeth, basically. And same thing with going back to bed at night. But anyways, the second time I got out of the car and I was like, I'm gonna crush this thing. And it was in Sarasota. I had like a ocean view, like like a
Nice.
yeah ocean. I had like this the best testing center, I'd say, like because you were looking at the siesta key. I mean,
Wow.
not like while you're taking the test, but it was just right there, and I'm like just taking the test in a very calm and collective way, and I submitted. I'm like, I'm passing, and I hit submit, and I already knew I was gonna pass this test second time around, but. Maybe that was just me being cocky about it. I don't know, but I know I put in a lot of hours the second
Oh
time
yeah.
and studying it. But what about you, Joe?
We had very different experiences because I took it. So I took, and I'm going to date myself here. I took this exam back in 2007. This was when it was still a 2 day, 10-hour written exam.
Oh,
And I
10
took it,
hours.
yep. So
Thought six was a lot.
you do six the first day and four the next.
Oh my
It's a
God.
Saturday and a Sunday. And I took it at the College of New Jersey. And it was March, so students
oh
were all
my God,
around.
Cole.
So we walk into the testing room and they have those like picnic style tables, one person on one side, one on the other. And I will say to this day, my greatest superpower is my ability to focus. And there was a band practicing underneath us.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
was so in the zone, I didn't hear a thing. Like I was so zoned in on that exam. And I remember walking out and going, man, those drums are pretty loud. And I was walking out with somebody that I did my coursework with at Fairleigh Dickinson in Madison. And they were like, how did you get through the drums? I was like, They were doing that during the test, and they were like, "Did you not hear?" And I was like, "No, I did not."
Incredible.
Like I was so in the zone, and I remember coming back that night and going, "Man, I can't believe I have to do more tomorrow." And then we came back and we did more the next day, but like it was dark and cold, and it was just. And I remember 2 nights before the exam, I was doing a practice test, and I had finally thought that I cracked A, B, and C trusts. Got so mad. I got like 4 questions, 5 questions in a row wrong. I was at my mom's house because me and my buddy rented an apartment, but I was 23 at the time, and it was just mayhem at this apartment. It was like two guys living in an apartment. It was like a frat house still. Like we were still fresh out. So I was like, I got to get away from here. So I went and I stayed at my mom's house. And I remember like it's silence in the house. My mom and stepdad are watching TV, and all you hear is me throw the books across the room and go, F this exam, like frustrated. And I'm like, that was the point where I was just like, whatever happens on exam day happens. And
Oh my God.
but yeah, so I did not walk in. And we had to wait. You had to wait 8 weeks to get your result. But I remember getting the letter in the mail at work, opening it up, and it said, "Dear David," and had my CFP name. They had messed up their mail merge.
Oh,
Did you guys ever do mail merges? They
Yeah.
messed it up, so it was like one off. So I had to call CFP board and go, "Did I pass or not?" And they're like, "Yes, you passed." And I was like, "Oh my God, what a like nightmare this process was." But
You really deserve those titles. The
oh man, I was like,
letters
I
pass.
after all of this that you guys put me through, I'm like, I think I've earned this title. But I walked out of that exam not knowing. I felt the same as you guys. Like I went in going, this could go either way, but it was certainly wonderful, and it does feel, in my opinion, extremely surreal. Like it's not adrenaline, it's just like it's like part relief and part happiness, and I'm just so happy I don't have to study again.
yeah, for me too was it was funny. Like you talk about the dreams and stuff. It's like you just I would you wake up at like 2 a.m. and you're thinking about these process.
Oh.
Oh my God, the multiple choice question hallucinations.
Yeah. So it's like since then, it's like, yeah, so
Uh,
it's like no more waking up at 2 a.m. thinking about this question. It's like, yeah, it's just, but that's what you will, that will happen. And you just have to get through it.
Yeah. My testing center put me in the exact same seat as the attempt that I did not pass. And I was like, you know what? The universe is giving me a redemption arc, and I'm going to follow through with it.
and it did. It certainly did. Well, thank
Here's
you.
something really funny, really quick. So at the testing center during my break, so I knew a year ago through a friend they didn't offer the retake in July here in Reno. You had to go to Sacramento. So during one of my breaks, I legitimately asked them, "Hey, are you guys going to be retaking doing this test in Reno?" Because I was through the test and I'm like, if I have to come back, I want to know if I'm going to take it here in Reno or not. That's how out of it I was.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, but thank you guys for doing this. We
Thank you.
we really appreciate you guys coming back on and taking some time out of your day. And thank you for sharing these experiences. I'm sure it's invaluable for future students. Also, just good to hear, right? We all go through our own kind of crazy journey to get to these points, to get these letters, and hopefully this inspires somebody who's going to take this exam. So thank you so much for doing this, and we really appreciate it. Ramen, anything else before we sign off here?
Well, I'll say this, like we had a good run, and we hope to see you guys thrive in your career. It's not a goodbye, it's more like a see you guys later. And if
Yeah.
anything ever comes up, you guys could always reach out to Joe and myself, happy to chat. But it's good seeing you guys that you put the time in, the effort in, and you got the marks because it's something to be proud of at the end of the day.
It really is. It
Okay.
really, really is. And you guys were exemplary right from the beginning, both of you guys. So we couldn't be more happy for two people who truly deserve the marks, who are good stewards of this career and this business. it's tough, but you guys are clearly tougher. So congratulations, and I'm just excited to see what you guys do. Brian's gonna build
Mhm.
like 8 more businesses soon.
Yeah, it's we're looking to buy some books now, actually, possibly in LA. So we'll see. So yeah, and I have clients in
Mhm.
Phoenix, so I've got it. I told Raman I got to get down there and play some golf, and hopefully I'm back east. So hopefully meet up with Lahari at some point. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome. And you have
Lahari's
family out
same
this
in.
way,
then.
right?
Wait, I'm
You
sorry,
have
what?
family out this way?
I think I heard overlapping volumes. What happened?
Oh no, you had family out this way too?
Oh, yes, yes. I have family in some in Reno, some in Seattle, some in like Irvine, LA area. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a great thing about this business.
Lahari's gonna take over the world some point. So
Yeah.
we're gonna say we knew her when.
Yeah.
Super
Oh
smart.
gosh.
Yeah.
Super, super smart.
Super
Thank
smart.
you. And
All
vice
right,
versa.
guys. Well, thank you so much for doing this. For those of you who enjoy this content, please make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and we will see you guys on our next episode.